For over 5 millennia, this mummy has remained bound and silent. Her skin is marked with cryptic symbols, ancient carvings etched in mystery, hinting at a story long buried by time. Heavy chains, impossible to break, keep her completely restrained. And every passing minute, mercury flows through syringes embedded in her neck and wrists, an old method said to drain demonic strength, ensuring her powers remain sealed. According to legend, if she were ever released, nothing could stop her. Her fury could awaken massive sandstorms, swallowing cities and reshaping the earth itself in mere moments. Her name? Ahmanet. Now, let's step back to the year 1127 AD. Deep beneath English soil, a crusader knight is entombed, clutching a glowing red gemstone whose origin no one can explain. Centuries pass. In present-day London, construction teams digging a new underground railway unexpectedly stumble across a forgotten graveyard. Its occupants, long-dead knights, many still preserved in waterlogged crypts. Researchers begin to suspect that these warriors may have once launched a campaign into Egypt, only to return with more than just war stories. Soon after, Dr. Henry Jekyll enters the scene. With a sharp mind and a growing obsession for arcane relics, he quickly takes command of the excavation. He's not just there out of academic curiosity, he's chasing a secret he's been piecing together for years, the hidden truth behind Princess Ahmanet. Ahmanet wasn't always a figure of horror. In ancient Egypt, she was born as royalty, the sole heir to the pharaoh. Gifted with intelligence, charisma, and a commanding presence, she was being prepared to rule as a divine monarch. But her future collapsed when her father's new wife gave birth to a son. Her destiny was snatched away in an instant. Gripped by bitterness and a thirst for vengeance, Ahmanet made a fateful choice. She called upon the god of death, Seth, offering herself to his darkness in exchange for supernatural might. Her loyalty to him required a sacrifice. She had to find him a vessel in the mortal world. In her madness, Ahmanet slaughtered her entire bloodline, including the newborn who had taken her crown. With her family gone, the throne was hers, but she never got the chance to ascend. Egyptian priests, horrified by what she had done, captured her before the dark ritual could be completed. As punishment, they sentenced her to an unthinkable fate. Buried alive in a distant land, her existence erased from all records. They ensured that not even her name would echo in history. Thousands of years later, in the sands of modern-day Iraq, 2 U.S. Army soldiers, Sergeant Nick Morton and Corporal Chris Vale, are on a covert mission. They've been tipped off about a potential tomb and were sent by none other than Dr. Jack himself, who's offered them generous compensation. It's a quiet job, or so they hope. But the area is swarming with hostile rebels, making every step a risk. Chris voices concern, sensing the danger, but Nick insists on pressing forward. They can't walk away. Not yet. Their unauthorized presence doesn't stay hidden for long. Gunfire erupts, forcing the soldiers into a firefight with hostile forces. With no easy escape in sight, they reluctantly call in an airstrike, hoping it'll buy them time, or at least survival. What follows, though, is far from what they expected. As the dust settles and the ground shakes from the blast, something ancient is stirred. The explosion uncovers a long-lost subterranean chamber, buried and untouched for thousands of years. Their commanding officer, Colonel Greenway, arrives soon after. He wastes no time questioning their motives, suspecting them of smuggling valuable artifacts for profit. Nick and Chris defend themselves, claiming they were tracking rebel activity, not treasure hunting. The situation grows tenser until Army archaeologist Jenny Halsey appears, visibly furious. She storms up to Nick and slaps him, accusing him of stealing a priceless map after they spent the night together in Baghdad. Nick denies it, of course, but the tension only thickens. As emotions flare, Jenny notices something unusual, a shaft leading into the earth. There, within the crumbled stone, lies a tomb that shouldn't be here. An Egyptian chamber in Persian territory? It defies historical logic. Jenny is convinced they must investigate, and despite his reluctance, Greenway gives her a strict 2-hour window. He assigns Nick and Chris to accompany her. As they move deeper into the tomb, Nick notices something strange, mercury trickling from above and collecting in small, gleaming pools. The sight is unsettling, and Jenny explains that in ancient Egypt, mercury was thought to repel evil spirits. It's likely this tomb was designed with that belief in mind. Following narrow channels filled with the liquid, they soon arrive at a second chamber, where Jenny begins her examination without delay. While the team explores the eerie chamber, Chris quietly pockets some of the ancient gold ornaments scattered among the skeletal remains. Jenny, however, focuses on the peculiar setup of the room. All the statues face a strange central pool filled with mercury, an odd sight on its own. But what's more unusual is the absence of any typical funerary items. There are no signs of spiritual passage or afterlife preparation. This isn't a resting place, it's a cage. Jenny pieces it together. The heavy chains connected to the mercury aren't meant for lifting something out. They're meant to keep something submerged. Their tense discovery is interrupted by a call from Greenway. He warns them of rebels heading their way and urges an immediate evacuation. But Jenny isn't ready to leave. She's convinced they're on the edge of something extraordinary. Chris is skeptical, and a heated exchange follows. Meanwhile, Nick notices a pulley system hidden beneath the surface. Trusting his instincts, he fires at it. Moments later, a sarcophagus emerges from the pool, dripping with mercury. Before anyone can react, a flood of spiders pours through the chamber. One of them bites Chris, who spirals into a panic and starts firing his weapon wildly. Nick manages to calm him, assuring him that the spiders aren't poisonous. As Nick approaches the sarcophagus, a sudden wave of visions overcomes him. He sees Ahmanet, who tells him that by freeing her, he's sealed his destiny. She has chosen him. Shaken, Nick snaps back to reality when Jenny pulls him away, insisting the sarcophagus must be brought in for study. Still dazed, Nick contacts Greenway, who arranges for an airlift. As the ancient coffin is pulled from the chamber and flown out, Nick notices something unsettling. Flocks of crows circling above, as if following the artifact. Soon, the group arrives at a remote airstrip just as an ominous sandstorm begins to brew. The sarcophagus is loaded onto a military plane, and the crew prepares for departure. Chris, now clearly unwell, shows signs of something deeper than a spider bite, but the others are too distracted to notice. On board, Nick attempts to reconnect with Jenny, admitting he may have stolen the map, but insists his feelings are genuine. Jenny, however, remains distant. She already knows what kind of man he is, a treasure hunter with no real loyalty. As the flight continues, Jenny studies the markings on the sarcophagus, piecing together Ahmanet's story. Her words seem to trigger another vision for Nick. This time, he sees himself as the vessel for Seth, the god Ahmanet seeks to summon. At that moment, Chris, now fully possessed, gets up and reaches for a ceremonial blade. He tries to open the sarcophagus, but Greenway intervenes. Without hesitation, Chris kills him. Chaos erupts as Chris attacks the others, forcing Nick to shoot him in self-defense. Suddenly, the sky darkens as thousands of crows slam into the aircraft, damaging the engines and sending it into a deadly dive. As the plane plummets toward England, Nick straps a parachute onto Jenny and pushes her out, sacrificing his own escape to ensure hers. After the crash, Jenny, shaken and grieving, is asked to identify the bodies. But the story takes a strange turn. Nick, who was presumed dead, wakes up inside a body bag. Disoriented, he stumbles out only to find Chris, calm and oddly present, standing nearby. Although no one else sees Chris, he speaks as if Nick already understands what's happening. Moments later, Jenny and the doctors rush in, stunned to find Nick alive and breathing. Elsewhere, at the crash site, 2 military officers inspect the wreckage. One opens the sarcophagus out of curiosity, only to be attacked by its horrifying occupant. Ahmanet awakens, her withered form feeding on the life force of the officers, regenerating herself with each victim. Once revived, she turns the dead men into her loyal, undead minions. Back in London, Nick and Jenny sit in a dimly lit bar, both rattled by Nick's impossible survival. With no scientific explanation, Jenny begins to theorize. She believes Ahmanet was once a royal heir erased from history, someone who tried to bring the god Seth into the human world using a mystical dagger with a gemstone in its hilt. That gem, according to legends, was stolen during the Crusades and buried with a knight. Recently, archaeologists uncovered such a tomb, and Jenny suspects that's where the missing jewel may still rest. As she shares this theory, Nick keeps catching glimpses of Chris everywhere he looks. Hoping to clear his head, Nick steps away and heads to the restroom, but the hallucinations follow him.
You shot me!
I'm sorry.
3 times, Nick!
Yes.
Staring into the mirror, he finds Chris glaring back. It's not just paranoia anymore. Chris warns him that the curse isn't just his, They're both caught in it. If Nick doesn't follow Ahmanet's path, the consequences will only spiral. Elsewhere, Jenny contacts Dr. Henry Jekyll to report everything that's happened so far. Henry instructs her to bring Nick in, but advises her to keep certain truths hidden for now. Meanwhile, Nick, still disoriented and shaken, stumbles into an alley. Suddenly, he finds himself face to face with Ahmanet. Rats pour toward him in a nightmarish swarm, and Nick panics. But in reality, he's hallucinating in the middle of a busy street. Jenny pulls him to safety just in time. He finally confesses that Ahmanet is in his head. Jenny, trying to rationalize it, suggests it might just be mercury poisoning from the chamber. Nick, however, isn't convinced. Determined to prove what's happening to him is real, he insists on returning to the crash site to see the sarcophagus again. While he and Jenny make their way back, Ahmanet continues restoring her strength, draining life from more victims and growing more powerful with each one. When they arrive at the wreckage, Jenny goes to examine the sarcophagus. Nick, on the other hand, feels strangely pulled toward a nearby church. Inside, another vision overwhelms him, and he suddenly realizes he's wandered deep into the building. Before he can make sense of it, Ahmanet's undead followers ambush him and drag him before her. She prepares to carry out the ritual, smashing open a hidden statue to reveal Seth's dagger. Just as she's about to complete the sacrifice, she notices something critical. The gemstone is missing from the hilt. At that moment, Jenny bursts through the doors, distracting Ahmanet. The queen charges toward her, but Nick fights off the mummies and manages to rescue Jenny. As they flee together, Jenny begins to suspect that Ahmanet is directly influencing Nick's actions. He denies it, but the truth becomes painfully clear when he realizes he's been driving back toward the church without even meaning to. Her grip on him is growing stronger. Desperate to escape, they keep going, but Ahmanet's undead are close behind. The chase ends in a crash. Ahmanet arrives soon after and knocks Nick aside with ease. Just as she prepares to kill Jenny, a well-armed strike team arrives. They overpower Ahmanet with precision, rescuing Jenny and knocking Nick unconscious. Nick wakes up in a strange facility, face to face with Dr. Henry Jekyll. Henry introduces himself as the head of Prodigium, a covert organization that tracks and contains supernatural threats. He explains that he too suffers from a dark curse, one that he keeps in check with an experimental serum. Jenny, it turns out, has been working with him all along. Henry takes Nick to see Ahmanet, who is now contained and weakened. Her body is being pumped with mercury, which hardens over time and slowly paralyzes her from the inside out. As Nick watches, Ahmanet turns to him. She whispers of a future where Seth takes over his body, granting him control over life and death, and promises to rule at his side as his queen. Her words are seductive, and when the mercury begins to burn her, Nick unexpectedly begs Henry to stop. Henry, intrigued, takes note of Nick's reaction. Back at the Crusader tomb, Prodigium agents finally uncover the missing gemstone, confirming it was buried with a knight centuries ago. At the same moment, Ahmanet cryptically speaks to Jenny. She hints that the dagger, the jewel, and Nick all ending up in the same place was no accident. When Jenny connects the pieces, the truth dawns on her. Henry's real plan is to let Seth possess Nick, believing this will allow them to kill the god from within. Jenny confronts Henry, but he remains resolute. In his eyes, Nick's fate was sealed the moment Ahmanet marked him. Enraged, Nick grabs the serum and demands an alternative way to end the curse, but the situation escalates rapidly. Henry starts to lose control. His body convulses, and in moments, he transforms into his monstrous alter ego, Mr. Hyde. As chaos erupts in the containment facility, alarms blare and the room seals itself shut. Jenny and a guard manage to escape, but Nick is left locked inside with the emerging terror of Mr. Hyde. At the same time, Ahmanet manipulates a nearby technician, forcing him to release her from her restraints. Back inside the chamber, Nick goes toe-to-toe with Hyde. The fight is fierce and frenzied, but Nick eventually manages to inject him with the serum, forcing the beast to retreat and restoring Henry's human form. Jenny returns not long after and urges Nick to come with her. Their next stop, the Crusader tomb. Destroying the gemstone, she believes, is the key to breaking the curse and stopping the ritual once and for all. But as they race through London, Ahmanet unleashes her full might. A monstrous sandstorm swallows the city, plunging everything into chaos. Separated in the storm, Nick suddenly encounters Chris, who claims to know where the jewel is hidden. Trusting him leads to disaster. Chris was never truly helping. He was guiding Nick straight into Ahmanet's hands. Meanwhile, the ancient knights once buried in the tomb rise again, animated by Ahmanet's dark energy. They retrieve the jewel and present it to her, reigniting the threat of Seth's return. Beneath the city, in a labyrinth of forgotten tunnels, Jenny fights for her life as Ahmanet's minions close in. Just when things look grim, Nick arrives, battling off the undead. But amid the clash, a mummy smashes into the wall, sending Nick and Jenny plummeting into a submerged chamber below. Nick manages to save Jenny from drowning, but their relief is short-lived. Ahmanet surfaces from the depths, dragging Jenny away before Nick can react. Gasping for breath, he resurfaces, only to dive back into the black water. What he finds crushes him, Jenny's lifeless body floating silently beneath the surface. He swims to her, but more of Ahmanet's minions rise to block his path. Fueled by anguish, Nick tears through them and brings Jenny to the surface. But he's too late. She's gone. Ahmanet reappears, trying to console him. She beckons him to let go of the past and embrace his destiny beside her. However, as Nick stares at Jenny's lifeless form, his grief turns into rage, and he charges at Ahmanet. She retaliates, unleashing her power on him, but in the midst of the battle, Nick manages to snatch the dagger from her grasp. With the jewel now reunited with the blade, he has a choice: destroy it and end everything, or plunge the weapon into himself and accept the power of Seth. Ahmanet tempts him with promises of dominion and resurrection, and for a moment, Nick hesitates. Then he makes his choice. With a single brutal motion, he drives the dagger into his own chest. Darkness floods in as Seth begins to awaken inside him. Ahmanet approaches, hopeful, but Nick, still clinging to his humanity, looks to Jenny's body and finds his reason to fight back. Against the odds, he takes control. Drawing from Seth's power, he turns it against Ahmanet, draining her life away until she crumbles into a shriveled shell. With the power of death now in his hands, Nick turns to Jenny and breathes life back into her. Jenny wakes in confusion, scanning the chamber until she spots the remains of Ahmanet. But Nick is nowhere near. Instead, he stands in the shadows, distant and uncertain. He warns her not to come closer. Whatever he is now, he fears what he might do. He tells her he loves her, wishing for more time, and then vanishes before Henry and his team arrive. Later, as Jenny reflects with Henry, he explains that Nick is still out there. Though transformed, a part of his soul remains intact. He's not a monster entirely, just a man lost in the grip of godly power, searching for redemption. Far away, in the heart of Egypt, Nick rides across the desert with Chris, who has been brought back to life. Behind them, a massive sandstorm trails through the sky, a symbol of the ancient force now coursing through Nick's veins. Though his path is uncertain, one thing is clear: his story is far from over.